Hare Krishna, a very warm welcome to all the devotees to our session on Srimad Bhagavatam study. In this particular session, we are focusing primarily on shloka memorization, and we call it a workshop mainly because we allow or we request our devotees participants to kind of practice the recitation of the verses, the important verses of Srimad Bhagavatam. So in the first canto, there are roughly around 50 verses which are recommended for memorization. So we are kind of at the end of this first canto, have memorized, I think, almost 90% of the verses that are recommended. The reason we stress on memorization is mainly to enrich our appreciation and understanding of Srimad Bhagavatam. And I'm sure the devotee participants who have been attending these classes also share that experience that when they memorize the verse, memorize the Sanskrit, try to reflect upon the word meanings of the Sanskrit words, try to figure out the translation of the verse, some important aspects of the verse. It not only help us to memorize the verse, but also uh, increase our appreciation for the subject matter, which is Srimad Bhagavatam. Hmm. So today we are going to continue in that journey. Overall, this is our 39th class on this subject matter. Previous class is available on our YouTube channel, Gita Online Study. And today we are going to study this or recite this verse from the 18th chapter of the first canto, which is the fourth verse of this chapter. So with that little introduction, we'll move to the Mangalacharan part of our class, where we will do a brief Mangalacharan. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet. Nashtaprayashva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha. Nandagopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. So with that Mangalacharan, we will share with you the verse on the screen. So I'll briefly recite the verse in the beginning, and then we'll hand over to the various devotee participants who are joining us in this class. न उत्तमश्लोकवार्तानां जुषतां तत्कथामृतं स्यात् सम्भ्रमोऽन्तकालेऽपि स्मरतां तत्पदाम्बुजम् न उत्तमश्लोकवार्तानां जुषतां तत्कथामृतं स्यात् सम्भ्रमोऽन्तकालेऽपि स्मरतां तत्पदाम्बुजम्. So this is, I guess, Anushtup meter, Anushtup Chand. Let me count the number of syllables. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Huh? So one portion of the meter, 25% of the shloka, the one charana of the shloka is 8 syllables. So this is Anushtup meter. It's a very popular meter. Bhagavad Gita primarily is written in this meter. Now we will invite various devotees who are with us in this class. So let us start with Jayamala Mataji today. So Mataji, would you like to recite the verse, explain the various Sanskrit word meanings, and also explain the translation of the verse, followed by brief, small commentary, very brief, small commentary by yourself. Okay, over to you, Mataji.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you. Srimad Bhagavatam 1.18.4. Nottama-shloka-vartanam jushatam tat-kathamritam syat sambramo nanta-kalepi smaratam tat-padam-bhujam.
Excellent, Mataji. Yes,
Na
Mataji.
means never. Uttama-shloka is the Supreme Personality of Godhead who is praised by the Vedic hymns. Vartanam. Vartanam means those who live on them. And Jushatam is those who are engaged in. And Kathamritam, Tat is his. Kathamritam is nectarian topics about Krishna. Syat, it so happens. Sambrama, that is misconception. Antakalepi, that is at the end, that is at the time of death, smaratam, remembering, tat padambhujam, the lotus feet of the Lord. So the translation is that this was so because those who have dedicated their lives in hearing about the nectarian topics of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is praised by the Vedic hymns, and who are constantly engaged in remembering his lotus feet, they do not have any misconceptions at the time of their death. That is the last moment of their life.
Excellent, Mataji. Very nicely explained. Please continue.
So this shloka from the 18th chapter of first canto, it gives the key for a glorious death. This chapter, 18th chapter, starts with Sutta Goswami narrating about how Parikshit was saved in his mother's womb when by Krishna when he was hit by the Brahmastra. As a result, when Parikshit Maharaj was thus saved, he was always a surrendered soul unto the lotus feet of Krishna. And that is why he was not perturbed when he was cursed by the young Brahmana boy that he will die in 7 days. So Parikshit Maharaj took it very gracefully, and he relinquished his kingdom and family, and he went and sat by the banks of the Ganges. He accepts Sukadev Goswami, who is the son of Vyasadev. He surrenders unto him, and he fully understands the supreme position of Krishna, and he gives up his material body on the banks of the Ganges. So this is the background. And now we come to this particular verse. Sutta Goswami says that why this was so, that because he says, Notama Shloka Vartanam Jushatam Tat Kathamritam. So here we come across the terms Uttam Shloka. This is one of the names of Krishna, who is glorified by the choicest of poetry. And Jushatam means those who are engaged in. Engaged in what? Tat Kathamritam. That is the nectarian topics, Amrita, nectarian topics of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this line means that those who have dedicated their lives in hearing about the nectarian topics of their Lord. So what is the result of that? The result is given in the next 2 lines. Syat Sambrama, that is Brahma, that is we say in Hindi Brahmit ho jana. So Brahma means misconception. So misconceptions antakalepi, that is at the time of death. So such people, they will never have any misconceptions at the time of their death. Why? Because they are always engaged in remembering smaratam, the lotus feet of the Lord, that is Tat Padam Bhujam. So this verse gives the key to not be fearful or bewildered or confused at the time of death. Now, death is a very difficult situation for all of us. It puts us in a very precarious situation. So that is why we should know the art of living in order to know the art of leaving. If we live our life in a spiritual, devotional manner, by hearing about the glories of the Lord, by chanting His name, by studying His message and applying it in our life and render seva to the devotees, then we do not run the risk of being bewildered at the time of death. This is the import of this verse. Now, Srila Prabhupada, in his purport, he emphasizes on the point that we should hear only from bona fide source, like Sukadev Goswami or someone in his disciplic succession. And how should be our attitude? We should have the attitude when we are hearing it, we should have the attitude of humility, of seva and submission. Only then the transcendental topics will become clear to us. And if one leads such a Krishna conscious life, then by the grace of the Lord our Guru, and the devotees, we can remember the Lord at the time of death, which Srila Prabhupada says is the highest perfection of life, just as Parikshit Maharaj. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji, for a very wonderful explanation. Very nicely explained. I think covered all the points. Specifically explained the Sanskrit of the verses very nicely, and also explained that how uh, engaging ourselves into the devotional service, the Bhakti Yoga, specifically the hearing of the Katha, Hari Katha part aspect of Bhakti Yoga, can actually liberates us from the most, I would say, deepest fear of our lives, which is the fear of death. So, with the example of Parikshit Maharaj, explained it very nicely. So, we now move to the next devotee participant and would request now to Jivan Prabhu, if you would like to elaborate and participate in the recitation and explanation. Yeah. Request to be brief so that we can engage other devotee also in the job. Yeah.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Yes.
This is verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 18, and verse number 4. This topic of this headline of the topic is Key for Glorious Death. Glorious Death. We can also call it as the art of leaving the body.
Mhm.
As Jayamala Mataji was telling, the art of living, should be, we should know how to leave the body. That should be the art of living.
Mm.
Now, I will recite the poem. Nottama shloka vartanam jushatam tatkatamritam shaz sambramo antakalepi smaratam tatpadambujam.
Excellent. Very nice. Very nice.
Now
Okay.
we will go by word meaning.
Yeah.
Na is never.
Mm.
Uttama shloka is the personality of Godhead, whom actually the Vedic hymn sing, that is the Uttama shloka. It refers to Lord Krishna. Vartana means those people who live on them. Joshata means of those who are engaged. Tatu means his. Kathamritam means the transcendental topics or pastimes of the Lord. Syatman, it so happens. Sambhava here means misconception, Brahmitan. Antakale at the end of our life, or at the time of death. Smarata means remembering the Lord. Tatu his Padambujam is the lotus feet. And the translation goes like this. This was so because those who have dedicated their lives, Joshatam. The Joshatam is very important here, to the transcendental topics of the Lord, Godhead, of whom the Vedic hymns sing, and who are constantly engaged in remembering the pastimes of the Lord, the lotus feet of the Lord. They do not run the risk of having the misconceptions even at the time of death. This is the translation. And here the context goes like this. This verse is from the chapter 18 of Canto 1, named Parikshit is cursed by a Brahmin boy. The first sloka say that Maharaja Parikshit could not be burnt in his mother's womb, though he was struck by this one. That is that Brahmastra due to Lord's mercy. The second sloka describes the consciousness of Maharaja Parikshit, that he was always surrendered to the Lord, and he was not at all overwhelmed by fear of, actually he was not overwhelmed by fear of Takshaka, which was the snake bird caused by the Brahmana's fury. In this third sloka, it is brought out that he gave up all the material association. He surrendered to Sukadeva Swami as a disciple, and he hears Srimad Bhagavatam, completely concentrated for 7 days. Though he gave up his body on the bank, finally he gives up his body on the banks of the river Ganges, remembering the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. Thus he has a glorious death, and this is brought out as a takeaway point for all of us in Shloka number 4. The Shloka summarizes the points as those who have dedicated their lives to the Supreme Lord's topics and are constantly remembering his lotus feet do not have any misconceptions at the time of death. And in this particular thing, I would also like to quote 2 shlokas from Bhagavad Gita, which are more or less the same slok, same content is there. Antakale che mameva smaran muktva kalevaram yaha prayati saha tatmavnat madbhavam yati na asti atra samshayaha. Whoever at the end of the life quits his body, remembering me alone at once, at the time of and my death attains my nature. Of this, there is no doubt. Second sloka is after one sloka, that is 8.5 is the sloka which I just now quoted. In 8.7, he says, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yudhyacha mai arpita manobhukti mam eva aishyasi asamshayaha. Therefore, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna, and at the time of and at the same time carry out your prestige duty of fighting. With your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without any doubt. Actually, all the points regarding the Prabhupada point has been beautifully brought out by Jayamala Mataji. I don't want to repeat. Finally, I would like to say the art of leaving the body, depends on the art of living by remembering the Lord always in our mind. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Yes, very nice, Prabhu. So you summarized it very well in one line. Art of living actually is completely dependent on art of living. So if we throughout our lives we continue to do this remembrance, Shravanam, Kirtanam, following the path of Bhakti Yoga, principles of Bhakti Yoga, then living becomes very easy. Yeah, so that is the main message. So now we move to the next devotee participant. Rakesh Prabhu, would you like to recite the verse? I assume that you have memorized it.
Yes, Prabhuji, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, yes. Yes, Prabhu, please continue.
Nottam shloka vartanam jushtam tat kathamritam yata sambhramonta kalepi smartam tat padambujam.
Yes, very nice. So you made it. Yeah, okay. Please explain the different word meanings.
Nottam, na never, uttam, nottam shlok. Uttam shlok is used for Lord Shri Krishna. Uttam shlok, vartanam. Vartanam, those who live by them. Jushtam, those who have dedicated their life. Jushtam tat kathamritam. Their life for hearing the nectarian katha of Lord Krishna. Syat sambhramont kalepi. At the end of their life, ant kalepi, at the end of life, they have no misconception, sambhrama, smartam tat padambujam. Because they constantly remember the lotus feet of the Lord.
Yes, Prabhu. So what is the translation? How do you summarize it? The translation, sum up all the word meanings that you have just mentioned.
Those who have dedicated their life on the topics of the personality of Godhead, which are sung by the Vedic hymns, and thus being constantly engaged in the remembering of the lotus feet of the Lord, do not have any misconception, even at the time of the death,
Yeah.
end of life. Yes.
Very nice, Prabhu. So, what are the misconceptions people have at the time of death, Prabhuji? Those who are not Uttam Shloka Vartanam Jushitam Tat Kathamritam. So, if they have not taken the refuge of the Kathamrit of the Supreme Lord, so what do you think are the misconceptions at the end of life? And questions maybe to
Misconceptions, they do not know the transcendental nature of the Lord. They do not know how Bhakt Vatsal is Lord. He will take them in his shelter if
So,
they remember.
So one of the biggest misconception or people may have it, what will happen to their family members after them?
After that.
What will my son do? What will my daughter do? What will my grandchildren do? If I am not there, how will they live in their life? Isn't it?
Yes.
Don't you think, Prabhu, that is seen in people in general?
Yes, Prabhuji.
That is, say for example, if somebody's son is not employed or is not married, and people are about to have that old age and about to leave their body, then they have this misconception that what will happen after them, who will take care of their children, etc. So but they forget that actually the Lord who is taking care of so many living entities all over the universe will still take care of that person, that living entity. And the real shelter a person can get is the devotional service of the Lord. So if that person is not taken shelter of the devotional service, then how does it matter what happens to it? It will continue to have the same fate like many others, isn't it, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. What more you would like to say, Prabhu, on this?
Prabhuji, previous two devotees have spoken so well, I can speak any better.
Okay. Good answer. Safe answer.
Say,
Appreciate the devotee and
प्रभु जी दोनों विद्वान लोग हैं मैं तो अभी
yeah, that is good. But anything would you like to say? Maybe even if it is repetition, no problem.
प्रभु जी Prabhupada said that the perfection of the life is in remembering the Lord, the transcendental nature of the Lord at the end of life. And this can be attained only by hearing from the self-realized souls, just as Sukdev Goswami or in their disciple or disciples,
Or is true follower.
true followers or devotees. So when one hears about the transcendental topics of the Lord from these persons, so one has no doubt, one is clear about the true nature of the Lord.
Yes, Prabhu. Okay. So, what are other misconceptions people may have at the time of death who are not spiritually educated, or I would say spiritually enlightened? So, we discussed about one misconception that they feel fearful for their family members, what will happen to them after them. Other misconceptions, Prabhu, or maybe other devotees may also contribute to this discussion. Jamala Mataji, or maybe others who are present in the class. What other typical misconceptions people have at their time of death who are materialists or non-devotees? What they may be thinking? Any ideas? Any thoughts on that? So if a person is a non-devotee, what will he think if he is told that he's about to die maybe in 7 days or maybe in couple of weeks? What will he think? How will he behave?
मेरी प्रॉपर्टी का क्या होगा प्रभु जी?
My property, what will happen to my property? Or
what will happen to my property?
And he might also think, what will happen to me? Where will I
What will
go?
happen?
he probably does not have any idea that there probably is life after death also. Some people don't even know that, isn't it?
Yes, Swami.
And in the case of devotee, what will the devotee think? What will the devotee think?
Devotee will think that
Either I'm going,
either
either
I
I'm
will
going,
come again in this world
huh,
with a better condition,
or
or will take shelter in the lotus feet of the Lord.
okay, yeah. So if the Lord is very merciful on me, He will provide shelter in my lotus feet. And maybe if He thinks I still need to do something more in my devotional service, it is incomplete, He will give me some birth where I will continue with my devotional service. So I'm pretty satisfied what will happen to me, isn't it? So he is kind of sure of what is his destination in the next life. But for non-devotee, he doesn't know anything. He has no idea. He's only thinking that he will lose everything he has accumulated throughout his life. His relatives, his wealth, his property, his name, his fame, his glories, everything will be lost. So he will be in the situation, in the mindset of a loser, but a devotee will be in the mindset of a gainer, that I'm going to gain something out of it. So both have a different way of looking at things. So that is how it is mentioned, Syat Sambhramo Antakalepi. There is no misconception in the mind of the devotee because he is spiritually educated himself throughout his life. He has taken time, taken endeavor to develop that spiritual renunciation, to develop that spiritual detachment. So that is how this process actually helps us. So thank you. I think that was very good discussion, and let me now show the words also to other devotees. So this is the words, and you can see how different word meanings are there. Uttam Shloka, personality of Godhead, of whom Vedic hymns sing, means Uttam Shloka means a personality who is glorified with choicest of poetry. Vartanam, of those who live on them. Jushitam is those who are engaged in. Tat means his. Kathamritam means transcendental topics about him. Syat means to happen. Sambhrama is means conception. Antakale is at the time, end time. Smartam is remembering, and Tat Padambujam means lotus feet. So this is the discussion of the words, and I hope everyone was benefited by that discussion. So with that, we conclude this session today. All glories to Srimad Bhagavatam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Maybe we don't have much time for questions. We'll move to the next session, and then I will now end this class. Stop recording.